Good afternoon. I'm glad you can take some time to devote to worship this weekend. If you asked what is a corporate statement of faith for this church, Shelbina, Monroe City Methodist Church, or almost any Methodist church, the answer would be our statements, what do we believe, would be officially things like the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, these creeds that have been passed down over the centuries. If you want to get into like how do we articulate what it is we believe, like we point at things like what we find in the hymnal. What is grace? Well, it's amazing grace, and it is sweet to hear. What do we stand on? On Christ the solid rock I stand. We stand. How do we want to see the world? We sing things like, be thou my vision, right? O Lord of my heart. That's the type of things we want to articulate. Well, what is it we believe, our creed and our hymns? If we want to ask, what does any particular individual believe? The quickest way to know what a person believes, what they really lean on, what they truly support, is not going to be whether they can recite the Apostles' Creed. Well, it matters. That forms our faith. If you want to know what a person believes, the two documents, the two things you look at are the person's calendar and the person's checkbook. What do they spend the two most limited resources on? Our time and our money. What do we do with our time? And what do we do with our checkbook or credit card slip or bank statement, whatever? I only have so much time. I only have so much money. And so if someone asks for either of those two things, like, you got to be clear about why I should. And it's quite an ask. And then to bring up talking about wanting someone's time or money, that can get people nervous. That's true today, and it was true back when Paul wrote to the church at Corinth, a church that was already kind of a contentious, cantankerous church anyways. But he writes to the church at Corinth. It's the 2 Corinthians chapter 8, we find this. And he writes to them, and he's going to talk about one of those two topics. What do you believe? Let's talk about how we use our money in light of what we believe. And he wades into these waters very, very carefully. He begins by pointing out that the other churches in the area, the other churches in the Macedonian area, the churches at Philippi, Thessalonica, Berea, they have already been giving to the need. And the need he is referencing, the church at Corinth would have known that. The need that has arisen is that the church at Jerusalem is in, Israel, and Israel has hit a famine. In those particular years, there was a famine in Israel, and there was no state assistance. There was no state aid. And if there was, it wouldn't have gone to the people who were in the church at that time. And so the other churches, Philippi, Thessalonica, and Berea, they have been giving towards an offering that's going to go to the church at Jerusalem so that they don't starve. And so Paul is pointing out to them that these other churches have given, and they have given above and beyond what he had expected. And it turns out that this is something that they've discovered in how do you get more people to vote? Like, how do you get more people to vote? What they've discovered today is they do exactly what Paul did then. If you send out letters to people that tell them how many of their neighbors are voting, people go, oh, I can vote too. Paul's doing this. This is what Paul's doing. He's pointing out, like, they've stepped up, and they're making a big difference. And what do you want to do? He invites them. What would you like? Do you get to give? He points out, like, these other churches, they asked to be part of the support of Jerusalem. And so what are you going to do, Corinth? He praises them. He says, you abound in everything wonderful, your faith and your knowledge and your love of others, and now you can abound and excel in this. Not that I, Paul, am going to tell you what to do. What I'm doing, Paul points out, is I'm pointing to Jesus, because Jesus gave up so much for us so that we might be able to have what we need, and this is our opportunity to follow in his footsteps. So Paul tells them, this is not you giving so that you might not have enough and others are going to have an abundance. This is giving such that your abundance can meet their needs right now, and in other times, their abundance can meet your needs. And then Paul quotes this amazing moment in Exodus when the people are going through the wilderness to the 40 years as they're heading towards the promised land. They've left slavery, they've gone to the mountain, they've got the 10 Commandments, and they're on their way. And talks about how in the manna that is the food given by God in the wilderness, the phrase is, he who gathered much did not have too much, and he who gathered little had no lack. That's how he's approaching this, that if whether you gathered much or little, that because you were in it together, no one went hungry. And so, can we do that again, please? And so, having explained what needs to happen and why, he then clarifies how it will happen. He says, and I'm sending Titus. You know Titus, he's been there before. You know Titus, you trust Titus. He's going to come with 2 other people, and they're going to be the ones who will take this offering, and because we want to make sure to be careful with how the money is handled, because this is important, this matters. And then he wraps up this little section by saying, and when Titus shows up, we look forward to him experiencing the generosity we're bragging on you about. We've been bragging about how amazing you are, and here's your moment to show Titus, which is a touch passive-aggressive, I have to admit. What Paul has done in this chapter at 2 Corinthians 8 is he has laid out why they should give, and in doing so, he has met the criteria that we know today. What is it that people need to know before they would spend money on something? They'd give money towards something. And you know this even if you haven't explicitly thought about it. I read this, it's been years ago, in a book called Not Your Father's Offering Plate. And the point the book made was people give towards a cause they believe in, leadership they trust, and a process that's transparent. That's what we give to. And if you don't have all 3, we don't give. Like, if I don't believe in the cause, I'm not giving. If I don't trust the leadership that's involved, I'm not giving. And if I don't believe that the money is going to be held and handled and cared for in a transparent, above board, very clean cut, like, let's look at the books, make sure it's all worked out well type of way. Like, if you can't say you got those 3 things, I'm not going to give you my money, right? And nor should you. And this is what Paul is laying out, right? This is why we're giving. And you're going to give I'm the one asking you. I'm the one who founded the church. I hope you trust me, right? And here's the process. Titus is going to come and get it. And you know Titus, and Titus is an above board guy. And so he's meeting these criteria around that we have, that we still had. They had then, we have today. Like, if you want to give $1, this is what you need to be able to see. And so I want to tell you, with those criteria in mind, I want to tell you about something that you have been doing, and you have been doing for years. You've been doing as long as you've been at a Methodist church. This is something you've been doing. And I want to meet that first criteria, the cause you can see and believe in. And I'm not going to get into the second criteria, leadership you trust, and third, the transparency, though you'll see, you're going to learn a lot today. Not because I don't want to, but because, frankly, we just don't have the time. If you want to sit down and hash through any of this at length later, let's do it. Let's get some coffee, and I will show you everything you could possibly want to know about this wonderful topic, the topic of apportionments. The word that no one has ever said and cheered about, though maybe after a few more minutes, you might be a little bit more excited about that term. So apportionments are the portion that the Methodist churches send in to do the work of the church beyond the local community. For the Shelbina Methodist Church, it's about $26,000. For the Monroe City Methodist Church, it's about $10,000. The long-term goal in Missouri is to get that number to be about 1/10 of the giving of the church, and we're getting there. Both Shelbina and Monroe City are slightly above 10% of the budget, but we're getting there. And I'm just going to tell you the punchline up front. Both churches, Shelbina and Monroe City, you're doing great things. Go you. You have given consistently to apportionments for year after year and after year, and you have made a difference in the lives of other people in ways that just have changed the world and made the world better in the name of Jesus Christ. So, there's your punchline. I'm going to come back. I'll say it again in a few more minutes. But we're going to talk about money, but I just want you to know that this is exciting. I want to tell you what your money did. because it did some awesome things. Right? And I could pull out the budget. I have the budget. I'm on the conference finance and administration team, and so I have the 10-page small print line item budget of everything going on in the conference. And we could go over that, but it takes a special person or a really messed up person to enjoy that. So I'm not going to get into the weeds of details. I want to tell you what your money did this year and next year. What's going to happen because of your giving. The broad number is that next year in 2024, the 600 or so Methodist churches in Missouri are going to give $10.8 million to support this. So let me tell you. First, what's happening at the conference office because of what you're giving. There's a guy named Mark Statler, who's the Director of Leadership Excellence. And because of that, what you are giving and what's happening through him, there are 16 people in the pipeline who are being trained to be pastors. There's 27 more who are candidates to enter the pipeline down the road. There are 308 lay servant ministry class participants, lay people around the state who are being trained because they want to step forward and make a bigger difference in their church. There were 10 scholarships offered to seminary students above and beyond some other funding I'll tell you about in a minute, so that pastors don't enter the pulpit in debt so as to embarrass themselves, is the old term. There's a preaching academy that is put on where 22 pastors in this state were trained to be better preachers with your money. Like, you are improving the preaching in this state. There are an adaptive church leadership cohort so that 15 churches are being trained in the way that leaders can help process going through changing times. There are 12 people who are ordained as elders in that process. That takes time and money to go through the process of ordaining someone, because there's psychological evaluations and there are interviews, and it takes money to do that. And you're part of the process of making it possible for us to have well-trained clergy. So that's what you're doing to support the leadership development. There's another guy named Mark Sheets who's in charge of congregational excellence. And so the money that you're giving, 2 churches have been restarted. There are 502 new small groups across the state that have been developed. There are 73 missional communities. There are 49 new worship services across the state of Missouri. There are 5 new churches or churches that have started a second site. So the new places the Methodist Church is going. There have been $182,000 of grants given back to churches to start these services, to start small groups, to start new churches, to start to train people. People are being trained to start new churches with the money that you are giving. Okay. The mission, service, and justice ministries of the state of Missouri, that's also what we are supporting when we put money in the offering plate. There are grants being given to 7 different churches receive grants to develop new ways to serve their community. There's a lady named Sydney Everhart who is now working at the conference office, and her job is to focus on rural churches like these churches, Shelbina and Monroe City. And she's been putting on a cohort of 11 pastors. I was one of these 11 that's training us in how to better serve in rural communities. And that will be expanding so that there's someone who is solely focused on the good of rural churches and what do we need to know so that we might thrive. Let me flip the page. Disaster response. If you want to be trained in how to respond to disasters, how to get in there when there's a tornado that hits, when there's flooding, when anything like that happens, both in Missouri or around the country, like, we have that training and it's set up with the dollars that we give. There are team members. I mean, I have a list of churches that have sent people out: LaCroix, Chillicothe, Warrensburg, Manchester. There's a bunch of other churches that are sending people out on a regular basis to respond to emergencies here in Missouri. If you want to be part of that, the training's there. Let me know. We'll go play. The guy who runs that is Scott Burden over in Macon. You might know the doctor over there, Julie Burden. This is her husband. There is a financial and administrative ministries at the conference office. There's a guy there named Nate Berniking who is willing to come and help. He consulted with 7 local congregations on how to talk about generosity, finances, and administration. There are people there who will help us talk about giving and wills and how do we talk about any of that. Other than Next Gen, our money has gone to pay for day camps, overnight camps. It has gone to pay for safe sanctuary training. As a Methodist denomination, because we support this training that makes it clear what we're going to do to protect children, the number of times that children have been hurt in Methodist churches has just dropped precipitously. Methodist churches are safe places for young children to be because of safe sanctuaries, and that training takes some money to make happen, and that's what we're doing. Okay, that's about it. That's what's happening in the state of Missouri because of what you're giving. And then some of that money then leaves the state and does things like goes over around the seas through Church World Service to do disaster relief, evangelism, church growth. There are 2,000 people in the Eastern Congo right now that have fled war that the Methodist Church is feeding because they needed somewhere to go, and your dollars are helping them have what they need. Right now in Ukraine, people are fleeing from that war, and they're going to Moldova. And so, I was reading a story about a woman named Natalie. Natalie ran with her kids and went to Moldova. And the Methodist Church is taking care of them over there. And it's your dollars that are taking care of Natalie over in Moldova because she ran from the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Your dollars are doing that. Money goes to ministerial education funds. There are grants given to people who are in seminary across the church, including myself. My debt load was decreased. How much debt I had to go to seminary because you gave to this church. Your money went to help seminary students be able to afford going to seminary so that we have the training we need to be able to serve you. And so on behalf of myself and my family, thank you. You gave and you helped me get through seminary. There are funds that go across the South Central jurisdiction is a term that go down to help people in need at the border between Texas and Mexico. There are funds that go to the historic black colleges, to the Africa University Fund, and there's some money that goes to general administration. Running an organization does take a few dollars. It is the 600 or so Methodist churches in Missouri that make all of this possible, along with the 30,000 other congregations. There are 30,000 Methodist congregations around the world. And yes, there are some large churches in there that do give hefty apportionments. But the majority of the churches that make up the majority of the funding, that make everything I've told you possible, are churches the size of the ones we love. Here in rural Missouri, these are the churches that are giving consistently, and what they're doing is making a difference. Because together, our method, the method of Methodism, is that together, we're going to make a difference. And we are. And I think we need to stop and celebrate that on a more regular basis because it's really cool. We're giving and it matters. And so I hope that in hearing some of these things that we're doing, some of this got your attention and went, that's cool. And maybe some of it got your attention and I don't think I like that. But I think that is the nature of being Methodist as well, as being able to say, the method of doing this together is to say that we're going to get together and we're going to make an agreement about what we're going to do. And how the Methodist Church spends the money that is offered is determined by pastors and lay people together. As far as I know, of all the churches that have a connectional system, Catholic, Presbyterian, Anglican, etc., when the bodies that get together and vote about how that money is going to be spent are pastors in all the other traditions except Methodist. In the Methodist tradition, It is equal representation of lay people and clergy, so that one pastor and one layperson from every charge go to annual conference. And then they vote an equal number of pastors and lay people to go to general conference. And at general conference, it is an equal number of pastors and lay people that make the decisions about how we are going to spend our money as a church. And so when I say that we decide how we're going to spend our money so that we agree on what we're going to do to make a difference for Jesus Christ, like, that's not rhetoric. That's our method. We get together and we talk about it and we figure it out. And if we think we need to do a better job next time, go to general conference and we'll change it for how we do things. And so we come to the punchline, and I've already told you the punchline because I needed to tell you up front so that you would chill and relax, and like, we're going to talk about money, but it's good. And here's the punchline again. By being part of a Methodist church, what you have given for decades has made a very real difference in people's lives, not only here in this community, but around the state, around the nation, and around the world. Go us. In the name of Jesus Christ, we've done big things, and we're going to keep on doing them. Amen.